Salam Rushdie.
Salams. I can't log in from laptop. I've been
On the phone.
Yeah, it's on the phone.
Okay, it's okay. We're going to start after this.
Okay.
Okay, shall we?
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this event, Padang on Marine Tourism. I'm Dr. Sri here, your moderator, and I would like to welcome all our speakers from Indonesia and also the founder and CEO of iPORTAL, Dr. Rushdie from New York, and not forgetting Dr. Razif from Malaysia. Padang is a very interesting city. I have been there in 2005 in Padang, and Padang being the capital city for West Sumatra, famous for its culture and it has been a trading center in West Sumatra during the era of the Dutch colonial days in Indonesia. So with iPORTAL and DHS, this is our third series of webinar that we are doing. We just completed in Batam and Bintan, and now today in Padang. We hope that we could have more webinars in Indonesia and learn from the way Indonesia is curbing on tourism and also on how they manage COVID-19. So without further ado, I would like to call upon Bapa Norival, sorry if I got your name wrong, the head of tourism for office for Sumatra province in Padang, to give a few words. Over to you, Bapa.
Sumatra Tourism Office of Sumatra.
Bapak cannot hear you, Bapak. Tak dengar, Bapak, tak dengar.
Okay. Can you hear my voice? Siva? Something happened with the voice. Hello?
Not clear.
Not clear, Bapak.
Hello,
Bapak boleh pakai headphone.
Thank you for calling Marsh Insurance Brokers. Our phone lines are quite busy during this renewal period. Please email your query to marsh.com. That's MBER.
Hello.
Everything's okay, Padang.
When you are finished, hang up or press hash for more options.
Bapak tak boleh dengar Bapak.
Boleh dengar.
Tak dengar Bapak, dia macam pecah-pecah.
I imagine change into my tablet. Can you?
Can.
Okay. Let's carry on.
Okay, while waiting for Bapak Novrial to sort his the system, we would like to call upon Dr. Roshdi from New York, the CEO and founder of iPORTAL, to give a few words. Over to you, Dr. Roshdi.
Okay. A very good morning to you all. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. It's a pleasure and honor for me to say a few words with respect to our collaboration here on marine tourism. I think if we take a step back and look at marine tourism, it's a subset of sustainable tourism. And sustainable tourism, if you think about it, why it's important is because it's aligned to what the Sustainable Development Goals are. If you look at SDG 14, life below water, you have to understand that majority of us are land dwelling, but many of us are dependent on the oceans, whether we live near it or we basically are linked to business activities to it. Nearly 3 billion people depend on the ocean. And one of the phraseologies that have come into being is called the blue economy. And the blue economy is something that is a phrase that is going to capture more of the imagination because of the linkages to the environment. If we look at the blue economy from the perspective of balance, the balance between fishing communities, aquaculture, micro SMEs, and resorts and hotels and other entities that are linked to the ocean, there has to be a balance. Right now, there isn't a balance. What we're seeing now are coastal communities, their environment and ecosystem have been eroded with pollution, whether it's single-use plastic, whether it's sewage that's being dumped into the oceans. And inherently, this is impacting lives, livelihood, and lives of people linked to the coastal communities. And so here, talking about marine tourism becomes extremely important as we look forward in terms of how we're going to contribute to sustainable tourism. Marine tourism, there's an emotional connection to the coasts and to the oceans for stress relief, for health and well-being, for inspiration and recreation. And if you look at the Ocean Foundation, they basically take a resort partnership approach where we're talking about communities' well-being and at the same time, ecotourism or sustainable tourism. So going forward, what we would like to see is a better balance where communities' livelihoods are protected and enhanced, and at the same time, people who come for marine tourism to see the coral reefs, the seagrass, the sea creatures are also protected. So I wish you all very well on this wonderful, wonderful event on marine tourism in Padang. And we thank everyone involved in inviting us to contribute. So thank you very much, Dr. Sri.
Dr. Sri.
Okay. Hailey, he may have some technical difficulties. If we can then continue to go forward with our keynote speaker from Padang.
Okay.
If the head of tourism office at Sumatra province in Padang, Indonesia, Mr. Novarel, can please start. Apologies for the inconvenience in the technical matters.
Okay. Bapak, silakan.
Thank you. Can you all can hear my voice?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dr. Sri. Thank you, my speakers and ladies and gentlemen. It's a very honor to join this Zoom seminar this morning. It's greetings from Padang, West Sumatra. Hope you all already visit Padang before, and we hope that after pandemic, we can also invite you to go and enjoy Padang, West Sumatra, Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, my brief illustration about Padang. Maybe you already know Padang. It's a very small province in Sumatra Island. We are one of 10 provinces in Sumatra Islands. Our tourists is depend on mostly domestic tourists. We have about 9 million tourists, domestic tourists every year. Even in pandemic era, the decrease of tourists come to Padang from another part of Indonesia is not so extremely decreased. But in 2020, yes, the foreign tourists already dropped from about 61,000 into 10,000 foreign tourists, because there is 3 flights from Kuala Lumpur already stopped in March 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have to do in West Sumatra for handling the COVID-19 is we already fight with COVID-19 with some regulation. It's a very hard situation for us in the beginning of pandemic era, COVID-19 era. We have tried so hard with every possible actor in West Sumatra to hold the situation, to control the situation. We provide free PCR tests everywhere. We provide some SOP to other regency and city, and also we give some protective equipment also to some tourist object and some tourist actors. And we have done some massive information dissemination to all communities and in tourism and creative economy. And also we conduct regional regulation to adapting of the new era after COVID end by this year or by maybe next year. So we also enhance our coordinating with the Pentahelix. We already hand by hand with the police, with the army and other actor. And now with the assistance of the ministry, we also do some cleanliness, healthiness, safety, and environmental certifications, for the tourism object and amenities in West Sumatra. So we also have some effort in maintaining the brand positioning of West Sumatra. You know, we creating every possible marketing strategy. You know, even the tourist flow is not coming to West Sumatra, but we also aggressively doing some virtual promotion with what we have in West Sumatra. And we also have monitoring and evaluations with the implementation of health protocol in West Sumatra. And by now, maybe we are one of the province who successfully, control the COVID-19 in West Sumatra, and our domestic tourists already come in a big amount to West Sumatra now. Ladies and gentlemen, what we now providing for the next era is we want to conduct a good understanding about the importance of cleanliness, healthiness, safety, and environmental friendly in all tourism sector in Indonesia. And we also want to building trust for every tourist to come to West Sumatra. We also switch mass tourism to quality tourism in West Sumatra. We have put some standardization of tourist attractions in West Sumatra. And also we have to transform the life experience tourism based on rural tourism destination in West Sumatra. Now we have about 200 tourist villages with the attractiveness, each attractiveness, different attractiveness in West Sumatra. And by now, maybe we are already provide everything in West Sumatra to face the year of 2022, where we believe that tourists will grow up again in West Sumatra. Dr. Sri, ladies and gentlemen, there is a very short speech from me from West Sumatra. Hope you all can help us in West Sumatra to again build our tourist environment. And thank you.
Thank you, Bapa. Thank you for the short speech. And it is very interesting to know that the efforts taken by your office on promoting quality tourism rather than mass tourism, and the areas that you all have looked into on safety and cleanliness. This is something that during the weekend I was talking to one of the state government officials in Malaysia. This is the state of Perak, and they are very keen to also look into hygiene management. This is something that they are looking at it very seriously. And the area that you also spoke about, rural tourism, this is something is also very interesting to know. And iPORTAL and DHS, we are very keen if we could also run webinars on rural tourism and to learn on the way how Indonesia has moved towards this tourism. So yes, Padang is a city, a very interesting city. I have personally visited Padang in 2005, and in Malaysia there is a state called Negeri Sembilan. They are basically the most of the people there are mostly from Padang. They have this thing called Adat Pepatih or Minangkabau. The buildings in Negeri Sembilan are Minangkabau style. So I think we Padang and Negeri Sembilan share a lot of similarities. So thank you very much, Bapak, for your short speech. Very interesting and very informative. So ladies and gentlemen, right now we would like to call Puan Siska Mandalia. She is a tourism lecturer from Batam Tourism Polytechnic, and very interesting, studied in Taiwan, Tsinghua University, Taiwan, and she also studied in Padang. I would like to call upon Puan Siska Mandalia to give your presentation. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sri Kumar. Thank you very much for the chance that has been given to me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, the Honorable, our keynote speaker, Bapak Nofrial, and then Dr. Rusdi Sidiki, and then the Honorable, our invited speaker, Uni Sari Lenggogeni, and then Bapak Dr. Muhammad Razif Jamaluddin. Actually, I already moved from Batam Tourism Polytechnic to the EIN Batu Sangkar as a tourism lecturer. So I didn't update my CV, so sorry, Dr. Sri Kumar. Today, I'm going to talk about West Sumatra, or especially Padang, but focus on the safety and the security, how tourists, when they come to Padang, and then what should they do. So I will share my PPT. Wait a moment. Okay, so we are going to talk about the safety and security in West Sumatra, especially Padang. About West Sumatra, as we know that West Sumatra is a province with Padang as a capital city and the unique buffalo name, unique buffalo horn roof architecture, what makes it charming. So not only that, West Sumatra is also one of the provinces in Indonesia that is surrounded by the volcanoes and lakes. So marine tourism is very interesting and very potential in West Sumatra itself. No wonder this region offers plenty natural tourist attraction for the traveler. Aside from that, there are some beaches from beach tourism such as Pagang Island or Pasumpahan Islands, where tourists can do something exciting water activities like fishing, snorkeling, banana boat, and scuba diving. West Sumatra is known by the name Bumi Minangkabau. Maybe we are here already know about the Minangkabau, and or we call it land of Minangkabau, as it is the home and origin of the Minangkabau people. The Minangkabau names comes from two words, namely Minang, it means wind, and Kabau, that means cattle. The name is associated with a Minangkabau legend as known as Tambu. And the province of West Sumatra is led by the governor, who is elected directly with his representative for a 5-year term. West Sumatra is also the native homeland of Minangkabau people. They speak Minangkabau language and predominantly Muslim. So we are here mostly Muslim. And West Sumatran have historically played the important role within Muslim community in Indonesia. Up until today, the region is considered one of the strongholds of Islam in Indonesia. They have a reputation as a traders, intellectuals, as well as politically safe people who have successfully exported their culture, language, cuisine, belief throughout Indonesia. So our keynote speaker already mentioned about the reputation of Minangkabau people as a traders. And then the next one is there are 10 lists of tourist attractions you must visit when traveling to West Sumatra. The first one is Jam Gadang in Bukit Tinggi. And then the second one is Ngarai Siano, also in Bukit Tinggi. And then Pagaruyang Palace in Tanah Datar, Batu Sangkar. Like our moderator said, that is a tight correlation with the Negeri Sembilan. And then the fourth one is Padang Beach, Pantai Air Mani Beach or Beach Air Manis, and Mentawai Islands, Niagara Nyarai, Danau atas di atas dan danau di bawah. We also call it with the twin lake, and then Lembah Anai, and the last one is Pasumpahan Island. So marine tourism is very highly how do we say that potential in West Sumatra. Here the safety in West Sumatra. So there are 10 tips for a secure and memorable vacation in Padang, West Sumatra if you want to go to Padang. The first one is never go out alone at night, even for a casual stroll. So in Padang, maybe for your personal safety, never go out alone at night, because in here from 9 p.m. So the road is already not many people go around at night. And then the second one is do not get swayed away by an unregistered guide. So we are suggest you to use a registered guide if you want to go to travel to West Sumatra, especially Padang. And then never accept any item from a stranger. Maybe it's normal. It's not only in West Sumatra, but maybe in all over the world. So you not suggest to accept any item from a stranger. And then the fourth one is being a predominantly Muslim country, or especially many people in West Sumatra are Muslim, and also West Sumatra is quite conservative. So make sure you're dressed appropriately when you come to West Sumatra. And then never leave any personal belongings untended in a public area. And then do not smoke in public places. In Indonesia, especially in West Sumatra, also has strict anti-smoking laws as well. Especially maybe in Padang Panjang, so you cannot, it's a very strict with the smoking laws. The second one is regularly follow local news even during your vacation, because in West Sumatra, as we know that maybe there are some area that, for example, there is an earthquake or something like there is a security issue. And then the egg is while shopping, make sure you bargain. So do not allow shopkeepers to exploit you. So we are really suggest you when you shopping, make sure you bargain. And then stay connected with your family members during your trip and keep them updated about your whereabouts, so that in case of any emergency, you can be located easily. And then the last one is do not carry any non-essential travel items during your trip, like expensive ornament or important documents other than your IDs. And then let us now have a look at a few sources of risk and how you can avoid them to ensure safety in Indonesia, especially West Sumatra. For the first one is for the transportation. Indonesia has various modes of public transportation available for the tourists. For example, buses, MRTs, taxis, becaks, ojeks, and angkot. And West Sumatra, so many angkots, so are a few options. Before traveling, research about you on the ongoing rates, even though the transport facility is better in Indonesia compared to its neighboring country. So we suggest you, if you want to come to West Sumatra, trust only reliable agency for the transportation and avoid taxi scams. And then the last one is take care of your luggage. Food. As we know that West Sumatra is also popular with rendang. So when you come to West Sumatra, food is a very interesting. You have to go to West Sumatra for culinary tourism is also good. But to avoid health issue in Indonesia, especially West Sumatra, keep this point in your mind. For example, for the first one is avoid the tap water, and then avoid peeled fruit, and then avoid spicy sambal because mostly the foods in West Sumatra is very spicy, and do not consume suspicious raw meat. And then the third one is natural disasters. Indonesia is situated precisely on the Pacific Ring of Fire, so an area that experiences a high degree of tectonic activity. Due to this, Indonesia, especially West Sumatra, is exposed to high risk of natural disaster and has always been an issue of safety in Indonesia. In the past, Indonesia and also West Sumatra has suffered from the volcanic eruption, earthquakes, tsunamis, landslide, and other natural calamities. And then the fourth one is crime. Given that Indonesia is a country full of tourists all around the year, recent reports are indicative of the numerous instances of pickpockets and mugging incident in this country and also in West Sumatra. So picking-pocketing is very common, especially in crowded places like public transport and also markets. And mugging rates in Indonesia are not as high as picking-pocket, but to ensure your safety in Indonesia, especially in West Sumatra, and try to avoid deserted area as well. And also be aware of the risk of the street crime and pickpocketing, particularly in busy tourist area. And also credit card fraud is also common here. So do not lose sight of your card during transaction. Criminals sometimes place a fake telephone number on ATM advising customer to report problems. And also customers dialing the number are asked for the PIN and their card is then retained within the machine. So be careful for that. And then terrorism. Indonesia has high risk of the terrorism, including suicide bombing and fearing. So terror attacks take place without warning, targeting police station and their public places like hotel, bars, and nightclubs. So also be careful about this. And for the women and children, even though Indonesia, especially in West Sumatra, is not the safe place also for the female solo traveler, but if questioned, one avoid unwanted attention and risk of sexual assault. The second one is children. Indonesia is quite safe for traveling with the children. So except for the few areas that are not suitable for them. So there is adequate medical help available in case of emergency. And there is plenty of safe food and fit toddler like fresh fruits available almost everywhere. So it will be easy for you if you want to find fresh fruit in West Sumatra and also in Indonesia. The seven is scams. So here tourist scams are also several issues in Indonesia. Tourists are easy targets for the scammers. Here a list of scams you should look out for. The first one is drink speaking, unlicensed tour guide, money changing exploitation, and forced ATM withdrawal by unknown. So be careful for this. And then there's also the popular issue for the security and safety in Indonesia. Indonesia is very prone to civil unrest involving political and religious conflict. But don't worry with that. Sometimes the political situation in Indonesia at the moment is stable. However, to ensure safety, you should always check the status before traveling. So it is advisable to avoiding traveling to Indonesia during the voting season. Mass demonstrations are quite common in Indonesia during these times and often turn violent. Always be aware of your surrounding and follow the local news. And then the sixth one is disease. No matter which part of the world you travel, it is advisable that you get a routine checkup before your journey. So when you're going to Indonesia, also in West Sumatra, infection and diseases have a much higher chance of occurring compared to the countries. According to the expert, vaccination covering yellow fever, typhoid, rabies, cholera, and hepatitis B are essential along with the booster shot of tetanus. But nowadays, you also should get like a COVID-19 vaccine as well. And then accommodation. This is one of the most critical points to ensure safety in Indonesia and also West Sumatra. Never compromise your stay. If you are tight on the budget, you can book a cheaper hotel but in place which is tourist friendly. Always check the ratings and review of the hotel before booking it. Once you check in, look around for the hidden cameras or any other suspicious item. Indonesia is a country where illegal activities are not uncommon, so make sure you are aware all the time. And then also you have to focus also for the political situation. The overall political situation is stable, but internal developments such as election, presidential inauguration, and external development, including also in the Middle East, can trigger public protest or unrest. So you should avoid all protests, demonstration, and political rallies as you could turn violent with a little notice. And here also additional tips while planning an Indonesian trip. The first one is before booking tickets, follow local Indonesia media to ensure a safe trip during your preferred period. And then the second one, make sure you have got a travel and health insurance cover just in case you encounter an unforeseen event. And then learn about measures to undertake if you encounter any unlikely situation like a terrorist attack or a natural disaster. And the fourth one is record significant emergency helpline, a helpline number listed above, and your respective embassy address in a diary. And the last one is carry a small first aid kit with only essentials such as essential medicine for the stomach infection and injuries. I think that's all my presentation for the safety and security if you want to travel to West Sumatra. Thank you very much. So I will give it back to the moderators.
Thank you very much, Puan Siska Mandalia. Thank you for your presentation. Yes, I think it is very informative on what a tourist should do when they are in Padang, Indonesia. And looking at this, I would like to suggest maybe in January or February, if we could run another webinar in Padang on safety and security. Maybe with your university, if we could do one, and
Sure.
to share, to have experts in occupational safety and security, even on health, to share on how we can assist the tourism industry in Padang, Indonesia, to overcome the issues or pointers that you had brought forward. So thank you very much, Puan Siska, and wish you all the best and stay safe. Okay, now we have this speaker, Puan Sari Lengoni. I hope I got it correct. PhD, Dr. Sari, and she's from Andalas University. She's working there. And Dr. Sari, during my trip to Padang, Indonesia, I visited your university, a very nice university, and I hand over the floor to you, and you could present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sri Kumar. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
How are you? So,
Fine.
hope you are well. So, allow me to share the screen. Okay, Honorable Dr. Sri Kumar, Honorable keynote speaker, Head of Tourism, my brother, Pak Nofrial, Honorable Dr. Rusdi Sidik as a keynote speaker, invited speaker, my sister, Ibu Siska Mandalika, and Dr. Muhammad Razif Jamal, and all the participants. Allow me to share a little bit about the, maybe this is about our research disseminations, what we have conducted about more on West Sumatra before crisis and after crisis. So I got a different angles from the previous speaker. So seems I got a trouble. Okay, just a little bit about myself. So I am now in charge as Director of Tourism Development Centers in Andalas University. And previously I worked for the tourism expert team in tourism working group in Komite Ekonomi Industri National Republic of Indonesia, and the presidential advisors from 2016 to 2019, and also work for the reviewers for the Scopus Q1 and several practitioner tourism experience, and work as expert teams in West Sumatra in the last 7 years, and some of awardee. And we also got the last this November got a grant from Australia, Indonesia for the West Sumatra. So okay, here is a little bit about the profile of West Sumatra according to the tourism of West Sumatra competitiveness according to the International Gateway. So this is the pre-crisis. I would like to share to you about the condition of West Sumatra before the crisis. So it ranks 3 out of 4 in Sumatra, and in Indonesia it's ranked 14 out of 19 according to the numbers of international visitors. But we got a competitiveness advantage because we have the shortest I think you're quite shortest accessibility, about 1 hour and 10 minutes from Padang to Kuala Lumpur and direct access. And we had Singapore access before, but it cancels now. And from Padang to Thailand is more about the 3 hours and 3 minutes, but we don't have the access already. And our product and positionings, according to our research from 2017 to current, is West Sumatra positions as a gastro tourism, cultures, and nature. So here is about the tourism satellite account that we have. We've got about, oh, I can't see it. We've got about 7.6 billion of incoming visitor, domestic day trip visitors, and it consists of family segment, MICE segment, leisure visitors, and we've got about 60K international overnight trip visitor. It's segmented as adventurous, shopping, local shopping, sport visitor, and MICE. So in total, we have the 8.15 million Indonesian rupiah for total spending. Here I would like to show you that we are very prone to the natural disaster, not only in West Sumatra, but also in global, I guess. But the trends show, according to international visitors, since the 1997 to 2020, if you can't see the red circle here, the drop of or the downturns of tourism, of the tourist arrivals is caused by crisis and disasters. In 1999, we had an Asian financial crisis, and we have the significant drop here. And in 2006, we also had the impact of our neighbor province, which has issue. This is really related to the sustainable tourism activities. And then in 2019, we had the very huge earthquake, and we lost almost more than thousands of people passed away at the time. And also before the pandemic, since the 2019, we got a very drop, about 83% of tourism arrivals, both for domestic and foreign for shows. Our major market is for internationals. Previously is Malaysia for about 75%, followed by Australia that prefer for the surfing or adventures tourism in Mentawai, and others, and just like Singapore, Taiwan, and Europe and United States. The length of stays of in average for the foreign visitor is about 2.40 days, and with an expenditure $283 US. So what happened during 2014 to 2020 for the hotel occupancy rates? It's actually quite stable until the pandemic hits the global tourisms, as well as internationals and domestic for the occupancy West Sumatra guest accommodation grabs. Okay, this is very important because I also work as one of the team for working on the long-term strategies for tourism in West Sumatra, and this is already regulated in by the legislative, or what we call it Perda number 14, year 2019. So amongst 19 cities and regency in West Sumatra, we divided into 5 characters or core products. So Padang, Regency Pesisir Selatan, Padang Pariaman and Pariaman belongs to the marine adventure tourism, and the positionings is refers to the coastal legend city, underwater adventure region, regency, coastal Islamic regency in Padang Pariaman, and coastal wildlife. And for the regions too, which is Bukit Tinggi and their friends, their core product is geotourism, because West Sumatra now also developed the geoparks, international geoparks in the last 3 years. And then we've got about some different positionings. The third region is more about the historical tourism or destinations. We call as the ancient of Minangkabau. So all about historical tourisms and traditional and heritage of West Sumatra belong to the Tanah Datar as the leading. If you can see the Istana Baso Pagaruyang, that is the area. So the positioning is genuine Minangkabau, Islamic ancient city, and the 4 legs of destinations. The fourth region is Sawalunto. Sawalunto also awarded for the UNESCO listed as a coal mining heritage. So we've got about 3 different cities and regions here. And the last one, we collected as one regions, which is whole is the Mentawai. So Mentawai is very famous for the surfers, international surfers. So coal is the white sand adventures, not only the surfers for marine activity, but also for the indigenous tourism. Okay, here is the research by Tourism Development Centers and Bank of Indonesia just before the pandemic hits West Sumatra. So for Padang City, because we talk about Padang City is affordable for tourism activities and marine, they got quite many marine experience and had a good accessible for neighborhood like in Pekanbaru and also Jambi area, which is our major market or road trip. And we got a wide span of tourist activities and attractions. But Padang is also had a high risk of the tsunami and earthquake, and it listed as the world quite risk destination prone, tsunami destination prone. So, but since 2019, internationals and nationals governments work and preparing for the tsunami issue here and mitigation plans along the West Sumatra. But actually, I should honestly say that sometimes the cooperation from the community is not really good at that. Like there is a stolen for the infrastructure for tsunami shelters and tsunami base and other things. So, but we had, the Padangs already had the good preparation in terms of shelters, tsunami risk information, and so on. And for the positive one, Padang created positive feeling for visitor. This is the perception from 1,500 international visitors and domestic visitors. And they said, and we can also see the amenities of like growth of coffee shop and restaurants really tremendously growing in West Sumatra, and especially even in during the pandemics. And wide variety stars and non-star accommodation, Sharia-based accommodation like halal tourism or Muslim friendly. And this is the most or the major core product is MICE facilities. So quite a lot of events, either international and national events conducted and choose Padang as the for MICE center. Feeling relaxed as closest to the beach and sea, and growth of the tourism investment accommodations is really high. But if we want to talk a little bit about sustainable tourism, because we, I think the previous speakers talked about the sustainable tourism, about mass tourism and how to make it like quality tourism. This is our research in 2017 in the marine tourism. About 85.2 tourists ignore to do just like recycles, and they don't care about the waste management and others in tourist destinations, they said. And 70% ignore about water saving, and 70% don't care about the electricity saving. 70% never clean the beach at the destinations. But the most significant issue is we got the problem of waste transfer from the urban to rural area in beach destination. For examples, like people purchase like food in Padang, but they put a waste food in the rural area. So the neighbors city, so the neighbor city receive the the worst impact in terms of the waste. So excursionists, which is the local tourists in West Sumatra, give the lowest economic impact because they don't purchase anything and the expenditures is quite low. And they left the crowd issue, which is mass tourism, so people don't feel comfortable again in the destinations. And majority of tourist behavior, sometimes this is because we need to give kind of like education to the tour operator for not being sitting in the reef, for example. So they give the kind of like reef distractions. So this is the research with my team in the Ministry of Forestry in 2017. So according to the research of tourism development centers and Central Bank of Indonesia, top 5 destinations for international tourist perspectives is belong to the first one is Bukit Tinggi, and second one is the Mentawai, and then the third one is Kota Padang, Padang City, and then Tanah Datar, Ancient of Minangkabau, and Payakumbuh. And as for the domestic tourists, it still belongs to the Bukit Tinggi, and then Solok, and then Padang, and then Payakumbuh, and then Padang Panjang. So that's for the domestic. And if you want to see the profile of tourism impact for international tourists, length of stays in the 2020, length of stays around 8 to 14 days, and 4 to 7 days. Almost, yeah, majority of them. And expenditure during visits is about more than 2 million Indonesian rupiah. And most of them stay in hotel, not in relative. We need to really understand if they stay in a hotel, for sure that it had the good impact to the economic growth of the West Sumatra because they pay money for that. So international tourist impact, they are actually, we can conclude as high value travelers and support to sustainable tourism because they are small, but they give the high values. But for domestic tourists, usually the length of stay is 1 to 3 days, which is weekend or public holidays, and expenditures only about 500 to 1 million for Indonesian rupiah. And usually they stay at their relative home, so yeah, they don't pay money for that. So domestic tourists, we call it like high impact travelers. They give an impact, but a little bit called mass tourism of over tourism. So here is our market profile. So Padang is actually belong to the MICE, Meeting, Incentive, Convention, and Exhibitions, because we also had a record for IORA, Indonesian Ocean Rim Associations, which is 15 ministers of their members come to visit the West Sumatra. And this is the biggest event at the time. And also Bukit Tinggi. We also had about university of 103 universities in Indonesia, in West Sumatra. So it is very, it gives the big opportunity to have like event, but not in a crisis, yeah. And business leisure, which is they usually have the like business visit, but they have a leisure trip. Bukit Tinggi, Tanah Datar, Pesisir Selatan, regulars. For leisures, yeah, they have to different place in West Sumatra. But we have the uniqueness segment, which is what we call a home visit, which is the West Sumatran living outside of West Sumatra and coming back to West Sumatra during the public holiday. And excursionist, which is in the local itself. So this is the market. This is the transformation of market before the pandemic and during the pandemic. So as we can see, no MICE anymore. It's very small because only local. And now most of them is just excursionists, which is local. But still they have contributions in during the tourism. So what happened during the pandemic stages? I'm sorry, may I know how long I have a time for talking and how many?
10 minutes.
10
You
minutes.
have 10 minutes.
Right, thank you. So as we already explained that crisis and disaster really impacted on the negative image of tourist destination and safety issue and create a risk perception that make the tourism downturn, because tourists don't want to avoid the risky place in the futures. So what we need to do is how to make the crisis management planning. So this is during the pandemics, as Pak Novriel already mentioned before, that we applied this cleanliness, health, safety, environmental certificates, but we are not actually quit from we are not coming to the long-term recovery. We are still in the emergency phase of COVID-19. And also we just heard about Omicron new variants already researched by the epidemiologist today, and as released by WHO. So this is what happens during the COVID-19 pandemic milestone in West Sumatra. So I got about almost 7K samples Indonesian travelers. And as you can see from the first case of Wuhan identified, so the downturn is already, it's created global infodemic or tourist fears. And then the drop about 0 to 0.5 in the first lockdown, and then case controls. And then, but the peak one, emergency one, is about in July. And most of them, we lost about 30% or 80% in the weekend, business and regional leisures. But now about in the last 1 or 2 months, we had the green signs because the case already controls. So what is the message, take-home message here is we really need to control whole of the surveillance and the health issue and health protocol here in all of 19 regencies. Otherwise, just like here, because in the new normal after lockdown and then transform into into the new normal phase, people feel euphoria and they don't care about anything health protocols, and they make a crowd, and then the case come back again and growing even higher. So this is very important for us. And also what we have conducted here is there were a volatility of tourist emotion and risk here. This is more on national perspective, but what I can say here is people feel stress, sad, anxiety until they feel bored and everything from the demand side. So what happened? This is during the lockdown, and they got the high travel desire, but they can't go because of probably regulations, barrier, like they need to do PCR tests whatsoever, and they need to pay money more. So they just travels during more of them travels during regionals or road trips. And so now we can calculate it. We have the COVID-19 risk, and we still have the natural disaster risk like tsunami and earthquake. So we need a crisis disaster management plan in the tourism sector. So how they cope when they have the quarantine travel desires? They have actually they're not sure, they unsure when the pandemic is over, but they have the high travel desire. So it is better for us to think about what is the trends coming during the COVID-19. So here's the place to avoid and dealing with the negative emotion. They don't like, they not prefer going to the indoor or theme park, like also they less prefer going to by airport. But the trend is very changes now, like they prefer like to go to outdoor mindfulness like healing, forestry, camp, and other close to natures. And they love to have gastro healing and coffee shop. As you can see here in Padang city, it is really surprised to see every corners of coffee shop investments by the young generations they built in the Padang. So during the pandemic, probably because the university have the conducted and regulated the online study, so they can use kind of like potentials demand for the coffee shop. And then virtual interactive, like using humor contents and local trip or road trips. And travel preference, so I conducted about more than 1,000 for 33 provinces. They still prefer both regional and domestic and local. They prefer nature. They prefer road trip. Not sure year ahead that COVID will be over. And top 4 travel wish list post COVID-19, Yogyakarta, Bali, Jakarta, Bandung. But Bukit Tinggi, they have it, but not really that high. So we got the vaccinated is now it's already quite many people vaccinated in West Sumatra. So our research also show 83% the cause of tourism downturn is really because physical risk. So the risk in their mind for being infected from the COVID-19. So what we got to do here is room for improvement. First, end-to-end cleanliness, health, safety, and environmental, just like in the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economic already make it as a high priority. Vaccinated and health protocol regulation because West Sumatra had already the regulation for the new normal. Digitalization health protocol like QRS, and Padang already implemented in for QRS like Peduli Lindungi. They need to scan before they come to the visit like mall and everything. CEO commitment, collaboration, adaptation and sustainability, and budget and hygiene and hospitality. So here is the center of authentic experience we can offer like eco-healing tourism, deep cultural emotions, vintage experience, marine and indigenous vibe, and gastro experience because they want the authentic. So here is the little bit broad view strategic from the long-term plan to short-term immediate plan during the pandemic. So make it just like ecosystem integrated and sustainability to improve the experience and memorable tourist experience. So here's the midterm strategic planning. And yes, for finally, I need to say that CEO commitment is the first one. Green zone, we need to prepare for the green zone also for the safety issues, tourism mitigation plan, end-to-end cleanliness, health, safety, and environmental, digitalization and innovation for creative economics, and also think about new market. Don't think about previous market because open air experience, healing market, gastrotourism, and rural tourism is also one of that they're seeking for now, and world-class main destination, and regional and domestic, which is road trip or neighbor or local. And we need to package it in the integrated marketing communication pro recovery stage. So thank you very much for the time, and I would like to hand it back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sari. Thank you for the great presentation. A lot has been effort has been put in, and we really thank you for the efforts and the studies that you have taken to share with us. We hope that we could bring this further, collaborating with yourself and your university, and to see how we can do another webinar to this in Padang. So thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you for your time, and wish you all the best. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Razif, a very good friend of mine from UITM. He's the president of the Tourism Educators Association Malaysia. He's also attached to University Technology Mara and the Institute of Business Excellence. Dr. Razif, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Assalamualaikum, good morning, apa khabar everyone, salam siang to Dr. Sri Kumar and also Bapak Novrial from Padang, and also my friend, I would consider her as my friend, Ibu Siska, and also the new friend that we meet today, and we learned a very impressive presentation by Dr. Sari. I really enjoy your presentation. Really impressive, and you presented all about this data and statistics that mesmerized all of us here, especially myself, and I really enjoyed, and maybe I can use it in the future. Okay, so I think Dr. Sri, the presentation by Dr. Sari already sum up this webinar, you know, because she presented very well about what should be done by Padang and the way forward, the tourism way forward, and I would say Padang can hire her as a consultant for your new blueprint for Padang tourism, and we can sit to listen on board of what will be the future of Padang, and we can try imitate that in Malaysia, especially in Negeri Sembilan. Okay, because I came from Negeri Sembilan, my hometown in Negeri Sembilan, so I just have a slight blood of this Minang people. Okay, Let me share my screen, and that's why I said the presentation by Dr. Sari is very impressive. That I feel really bad to present today. Okay, but never mind. Okay, for today I would like to just give a little bit on what is the segmentation. I just want to focus on segmentation today because the topic that we try to focus for today's webinar is marine tourism, and I would say marine in Padang is something that I haven't experienced, and I have visited Padang only once in 2019, and my colleague and I, we went to Bukit Tinggi, Padang, Jepang, Lubang, Jepang, and so many tourism products in Bukit Tinggi as well as in Padang. Okay, but what we can focus today is this domestic market or captive market. So the reason that why we are gathering today is that we want to, I have problem here. Okay, so what we want to focus, are we going to focus on domestic or are we going to focus on captive market? So we have to really distinguish these two markets. Okay, for example, you look at the size of the segment, and I would say Indonesia has a big population, and for example, you look in China. So now, like I mentioned in previous webinar, where China will focus on domestic tourism up until Winter Olympics. So that means we cannot see China outbound tourism up until 2023. So that's why we have to focus on domestic tourism, because every country in the world or every country in the ASEAN, before this we focus on China, and in fact Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, the largest number of travelers came from this country. Okay, so that's why you look at this. For example, this one is the data that I gathered for China, but how about Indonesia? So you have more than 270 million people. So that means if you can capture about 1%, you have already captured about 2.7 or 2.8 million people that travel to your country, and they won't travel one day, they won't travel for one time, they will travel several times. So that means how do you want to capture them and how you want to provide products to them? And we have to understand the preference as well as the behavior of these travelers. Especially before this I mentioned about the word domestic, now I mentioned the word capture. So we want to capture them. Okay, okay, so that's why if you look in China, they are currently producing new billionaires, even though this COVID-19 happened, but they are still looking into ways to produce people, to produce millionaires. But now let us shift to our discussion today. And today I would like to focus more on the situational analysis. For example, this is the most popular tool in marketing analysis, and I would say, what can we do from here? So we want to be competitive. So we want to understand the customer preference, and we want to know what are the competitors currently doing, and we have to understand properly the domestic business environment, and we don't have to neglect this international environment. And every one of us here agree that we are currently facing this unpredictability of the environment. Okay, the red color here denote the thing that currently happen domestically. So that's why what I would say that, can we improve this? Can we try to shift from what we are currently doing to something that people will mesmerize or people will surprise in the future, especially when the international market will reopen maybe next year, or who knows, in the middle of next year, because like what WTO mentioned in the previous report, that the international tourism will rebound in 2024. So meaning we still have about 2 years for us to prepare ourselves, right? So with the data that presented by Dr. Sari just now, I would say that there are many areas that Padang can concentrate. And for example, the data that I captured in 2019 for Indonesia, so you have about 282.9 million travelers, which is very big as compared to us in Malaysia. We have less than 100 million, and the domestic tourism receipts of 22.3 billion US dollar. And when we try to find the average per person is about 78.8 per person, or around 1.1 million rupiah. But one thing that we have to look into is this domestic tourism spending growth. The domestic tourism spending growth from 2018 to 2019 is about 5.7%, and I'm sure this figure will reduce a little bit for these 2 years, 2020 and 2021. So now, how we want to rebound back? What kind of products that we want to make them? We want to force them to spend, because of Just now you mentioned about this, like Ibu Siska mentioned on the safety and security, and Dr. Sari mentioned about this event, and I would say that event something that people look forward, but because of this international, closure, so we cannot bring people come because most of the event were done for these international travelers or for the trade events. So that's why now we don't have the trade events, we don't have the MICE events. So what kind of products that we want to focus, especially to the domestic tourism as well as the excursionists? Okay, so that's why for the strategic marketing plan, so we have two options. We only have two options. Number one is, do we want to remain status quo or we want to offer new value? So we need to ask ourselves, we need to ask the the policymakers. So are we going to focus on what we do best, what we did best previously, or we want to start penetrating to the new market or to the new products? Okay, so that's why the question that we have to answer today is, can we use the parent or data before the pandemic, or can we use or can we use the parent or data during the pandemic? So now the question is, we want to rely on the data before or the data during the pandemic? So the next question that we have to answer is, what is our core products? Who is the customer? What kind of value that we want to offer to the customer? So what will be the business and what should our business be? So that's why this one is the research that need to be conducted in the future. So I don't want to explain or elaborate more on this, but what is really important today, the discussion that we have to do in the future is to look into this, because we all of us here, like what we have been like what we have discussed before. So we have been discussing on Bintan and Batam tourism, and can we say that we can find any common ground for us to look into this destination marketing functions, for example? So these are for main components or activities suggested by Sotriadis in 2021 after this pandemic happened. For example, like, can we look into the planning and market research? So because at the end of the day, this is important. During this pandemic, so many of us, what we say that we are in the higher risk mode, right? So that's why now maybe the domestic tourism already restarted. So we have to start thinking of the right planning that we want to do for 2024 or maybe 2025 onwards. So that's why the proper research need to be done, and it should capture the right segment or the right samples. And then for the strategies, elaboration of the main marketing strategies, so what kind of the market segmentation, the targeting and positioning, so it must be clear and it must be communicated to the people or to the service providers and to the tourism actors or players. And then the implementation of the strategies, also we must have the right content, media. So now before this we talked about 4 P's, and now people coin the word 8 P's or maybe 10 P's. So we have to gather as much as possible. So we need to understand the appropriateness of the products, and can we say that we are good in this digital marketing and social media marketing, and then can we communicate well enough to the targeted markets? So this kind of thing, so that the message that you want to bring forward, that you want to deliver to your customer is really critical. And finally, the control and evaluation. So this one is also important. It's not only that we have the plan or we have the activities. So when you start thinking of activities, you have to start thinking of how to evaluate the success of the activities or the plan. So this kind of thing, like what we have today, we need to start thinking of the best way and the easiest way to capture the feedback, and also to find the threshold, the right threshold, the performance evaluation. So the benchmarking, what will be the destination that we want to benchmark? So what will be the right benchmark of the previous years that we want to benchmark? So there are lots of questions, because at the end of the day, so we need to have the KPIs. So we need to look into figures, look into the growth of the market. And when we present to the people, we want to present the numbers, right? We don't want to present with all these concepts or with all these variables, with all the excuses, right? So this is critical. Like when we start suggesting the marketing activities, so we start suggesting what will be the key performance indicators, what will be the figures that we want to achieve at the end of the day or at the end of 2024. So this kind of thing, like what being presented by Dr. Sari, already showed that. So what drives us is maybe we want to increase a little bit, we want to improve a little bit. And I would say you have everything. So this really, impressed me today with all this webinar. And finally, for the brand positioning, because my background is branding, so that's why I would say that this will sum up my presentation. So first of all, for this destination, so at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, we have to look into the emerging segment, or we want to serve the current segment, like experiential. People go for experience, for personality, or because of family oriented. This is a very big business when people go out because of they want to spend time with family members, and also they want to visit family in Padang or in Negeri Sembilan. And for product or brand, so we want to match the product. We know, for example, marine tourism just now, and I think this one is really interesting. We want to promote the product to the marine, but at the end of the day, we don't want to damage the coral and all the life under the water. So that kind of dilemma faced by the tourism or national tourism organization. So they want to promote this marine, but at the end of the day, they also want to sustain all the lives under the water. Okay, so that kind of identity and image is really important to what we want to be after this pandemic is over, or we want to come up with a new identity or image. And for the customer, okay, like in the previous discussion, I mentioned the words, do we want to cater to the most profitable segment, or we want to cater to the emerging segment? So we have two totally contrary or totally opposite characteristics of these baby boomers versus these generation X, or we call it millennials, because the millennials love to go in a short in the short term, and they love to snap photo, and they love to just find the viral products, or they just want to look good in Instagram or in the social networking. But for the baby boomers, they immerse. So that's why the term slow tourism start being discussed during this pandemic. So do we want to also look into the slow tourism or blue tourism or any other products? So with that, I would say that concludes my presentation. And so at the end of the day, so we have to find what will be the right products or the right brand that will capture the market, customer, and also the product. Okay, that's all from me, Dr. Sri, and back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Razif, for the brief presentation, and very interesting to see on how we can move forward. This is something that is great and very nice, and we hope that we can do this webinar again in Padang. Very interesting topic, especially Dr. Sari. I think you basically summed up everyone on your presentation.
Thank you very much.
And tomorrow morning we will be having safe tourism. We hope that all of you will be in. Dr. Razif is in. We have speakers from China. We have also from Indonesia, from Philippines, and two speakers from America on safe tourism. And we wish that you could be there. And we will also be having on the 7th of December, our webinar on new norm in tourism in Kedah and Penang, and then we are going to Kelantan, Terengganu, Johor, Melaka, and Seremban. So these are the few webinars. We end our webinar series on the 18th of December, the last one in Dubai. So we hope that we will send you invitation, and we hope that all of you can attend our webinar. And till then, stay safe, and thank you very much. And again, thanks Dr. Sari for your wonderful presentation, and wish you all the best. Thank you.